All right, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Smith, and in this video, I'm going to talk about some problems that I see in the martial arts community. First of all, people don't even know what a black belt is supposed to be. A black belt, by definition, is supposed to be an expert at all striking and grappling moves. All right, I studied a style of martial arts called Isshinryu karate, along with Japanese jiu-jitsu, for a total of about 6 to 6.5 years of my life, full time. All right, for the last 4.5 years of that time, I was actually studying in the dojo 15 hours per week. All right. And a black belt is supposed to be an expert, not a. I see these people talking about, well, a black belt knows all their basics. And I'm like, no, a yellow belt knows all their basics. All right. A black belt is supposed to be an expert at the style that they study. And as it was explained to me in Isshinryu karate, a second degree black belt, or put it this way, for every 2 belt ranks that you go up, you're supposed to be able to do a 1 versus 2 handicap in full contact against the belt rank you used to be. So a third degree black belt is supposed to be able to beat 2 first degree black belts attacking them simultaneously. And a fourth degree black belt is supposed to be able to beat 2 second degree black belts attacking them simultaneously. All right. Class consisted of a basic warm up where you do 10 reps of each basic just so sensei can see your basic form every time. And you do it as a class so he can look around and make sure that the lower cues are doing it right. And everybody else just needs a muscle warm up and relaxer anyway. All right. And then you do your push ups and sit ups and so forth in class, just as further warm up and jumping jacks and stuff like that. You spend about 5 or 10 minutes doing that. All right. Um, I used to take the cardio kickboxing class before the traditional class, and the cardio kickboxing was an hour of punching and kicking and working out on a heavy bag. All right, but anyway, in basics, all right. So you go through. Technically, the mainline Isshinryu schools consider 15 hand strikes as basics, 8 blocks, and 15 kicks as basics. The Arsenio Advincula branch of Isshinryu removes some of the more redundant hand strikes so that they're not wasting time teaching you the same motion over and over again, and removed a few of the kicks from the basics list to the intermediate and advanced list because they found out that virtually nobody can do an inside crescent kick and outside crescent kick with knockout power, no matter how much they exercise, unless you're born with like a perfect physique for that kick. And so they quit wasting time trying to teach that kind of thing to white and yellow belts. All right. But there were depending on how you count them, because we didn't even do all of them every warm up class. But there's actually 3 elbow strikes in Isshinryu karate. There's an upward elbow like this. There's I guess this is 3 to 9 elbow like that, and then there's a reverse elbow where you're hitting the attack. Someone's bear hugging you. You punch outward to break their bear hug, and then you rear elbow in their liver. All right. With a step back into the rear elbow when you do it correctly. So you go out to break their grip, and then you step back and throw a rear elbow as you also bring this elbow up to further break the grip. I don't know why they can't do that in MMA. They seem to be incompetent. But all right. So Isshinryu karate is taught in tandem by many instructors with Japanese jiu-jitsu. And so when you don't do any submissions at white belt, you just work on striking, blocking, and kicking, all right, and stances, basic stances. And you also do the 5 swords form, which was adopted from American Kempo karate, and what's called a sword of destruction counterattack submission maneuver is your first submission maneuver is taught at white belt, but you don't do any like real submissions, as I would say. Um, at yellow belt, you do more work on basics and you learn around 20 total submissions from Japanese jiu-jitsu. At yellow belt, you may also learn your immediate sensei's custom kata that's not part of the official syllabus as he started teaching there. And you may also learn eskrima and kama in addition to your roughly 20 submissions, sweeping, and throwing techniques. At orange belt, you start work on sanchin kata, which is used as the blue belt test, and you because Sanchin kata is actually the last. For some reason, it's traditionally taught as the last unarmed kata. But in Arsenio Vincula's camp, we started teaching it as the first unarmed kata because it's actually the easiest one to learn, but the hardest to master. So you need the most time to learn to master it. Because it's actually the shortest kata, so it's the easiest to learn. But the breathing principles that go with Sanchin kata are supposedly in the mental focus principles are supposedly the hardest thing to learn in karate. So it's tested dead last at multi-degree black belt levels, which vary from camp to camp. But you can work on your breathing while you're doing any kata. You can work on heavy breathing while you're doing in muscle tension and so forth while you're doing any kata, and indeed you're supposed to. All right. So you learn about 20 more submissions at each of the 10 Q levels, so that by the time you're a black belt, you are an expert. You have 200 submissions, 50 throws and sweeps, and around 800 total techniques, and transitional techniques under your belt by the time you're a black belt. And that's why it takes so long in a real JoJo to rank up. If you were just learning Isshinryu karate by itself, it takes about 3 to 5 years to rank up to black belt. If you're doing it in combination with Japanese jiu-jitsu, it takes 6 to 10 years to get your belt. And I would rather the 6 to 10 year belt program because I know my stuff, whereas the person who just got an easy black belt just got an easy black belt. And some of these schools are giving people a black belt in 1.5 to 3 years, which is silly. You don't even know anything, especially in a lot of the karate styles that don't teach submissions, don't teach it in combination with jiu-jitsu. They don't know anything. Anybody that knows how to throw a basic punch, by the time you're a light or dark green belt, you ought to have your basic punch mechanics mastered. And I mean mastered. That's considered advanced in the Isshinryu class. All right. So you ought to know how to throw a punch and torque your whole body into it without telegraphing. I don't mean loading to torque your punch like this. I mean from standing guard, torque your punch all the way out and through the target, about 2 to 4 inches beyond the surface of the target, and then back. All right. Not loading. Loading is telegraphing, and it's going to get your butt kicked. All right. I'm going to write down every submission that I still remember by name and try to name them all out one time. But this includes the front wrist lock, the full wrist lock, the reverse wrist lock, the double cross arm wrist lock, Nikio and Sankyo, and Ichikyo. All right. And what does that mean? It means first technique, second technique, and third technique. There's various elbow and shoulder locks, all right, that put pressure on you. The Kimura, pillow choke, Americana, and I learned this in the karate class 25 years ago. All right, really, I learned it at yellow belt longer ago than that in 1992 or 93, whichever the case. All right, but because my first instructor taught us 8 submissions on the very first day, and I still remember which ones it was, and we probably learned 100 submissions in the first month. Under him. But let's see, rear naked choke. In fact, there's more than one type of rear naked choke. Darce choke, various scarf holds, cross arm breaker, full arm bar, reverse arm bar, triangle arm bar, triangle choke. Well, gee, I'm already up to 15 right now. Well, 14. Figure 4 ankle lock, reverse figure 4 ankle lock, calf slicer or calf crusher, as it's sometimes called. Accolade, which is not that useful but kind of funny. Front choke, with and without gi assistance. Because you don't want to rely on your gi for street self-defense because you're not going to be wearing a gi when you're in a self-defense situation. All right, that's up to 20 submissions that I've named by name. This kamae, where you pop their jaw out of position with your thumb, and it has knockout power, just like punching someone square on the jaw. It will literally knock them unconscious if you do that to them. Um, you can also add an eye gouge to the kamae. Uh, this thing where you poke your fingers into someone's throat and push back and down with one finger, it will absolutely floor somebody and submit them instantly. It's banned in MMA. Uh, Stomach nerve 9, which really does work, but not the same on every person, so it's not reliable, but it does work on some people. And I have tapped out a Gracie Jiu Jitsu third degree black belt using it before. At least I got a verbal submission out of him. Um, uh, this thing under your nose, which is called fish hooking for some reason in MMA, even though it has nothing to do with a fish hook or even making a hook. If you push back and up under your nose, it actually, the reason it's banned is this actually makes it too easy to put a rear naked choke on somebody. So it becomes a submission combo. Um, this hurts like hell, but it's not likely to get a tap by itself against most people. But it generally will easily set up a rear naked choke, and so it's banned in MMA. A very easy rear naked choke because it's going to push your neck and your jaw up and back, and it's going to leave your neck exposed to the full underhook under the neck. So then you can do the figure four and just with your arm and put them out. All right. There's a figure four arm bar which you put on a downed opponent to finish tapping them out while you're still in the standing position. So I'm up to around 25, and like I said, I can name more of them, but it's just they become more obscure that I haven't practiced in a long time. But I still know how to do them if I needed to do them in like a real fight. Uh, Inside heel hook, outside heel hook, both from standing position, or you can do them from on the ground. But I would prefer standing position because I don't want to go to the ground. I want to be in control of the fight and standing, and I want to put my opponent on the ground, right? Especially in a self defense situation. I don't know if they have a weapon that they might be trying to draw or what the deal is. I don't know if they got a buddy that's about to hit me in the back of the head. So if I go to the ground grappling and I get hit in the back of the head by a beer bottle or a punch or a kick while you're down, you're done for. But at least if you're on your feet, you can look around and see what's going on and defend yourself against a potential second attacker. So I'm up to about a little over 25 submissions that I've named by name, and I'm probably just forgetting a few obvious ones. But I mean, gee, I haven't been a full time martial arts student for 25 years. Well, that's not entirely true. I was a student at Gracie United for about a year and a half, off and on altogether, and I was a student at Dana White's UFC gym for about 2 months before I had to quit that due to really the bus schedule not being able to get me there in time to work out properly. Um, which I found Dana White School to be the second best school that I've ever trained at, with Mark Myers being the best one that I've ever trained at. And the karate and Japanese jiu-jitsu school was by far the best that I ever trained at because he taught me everything in Gracie jiu-jitsu anyway. And I mean, and also another thing, the very first thing I always do when somebody says it won't work this way is I try it this way just to see if I can prove them wrong. And a lot of times when Gracie United instructors and assistant instructors said it won't work this way, that was actually the easiest way for me to make it work. I threw their grapplers off of me the way they said won't work. And dudes like, that does work, doesn't it? And I'm like, that's the first thing I was taught how to do is that way in my old karate instructor's class, was to do it that way. And you're going to sit there and say it doesn't work. And it does work. It's actually easier than what he was trying to teach. All right. So, what are the basic hand strikes that we did every day in class versus the ones that are considered basics but aren't taught until a few belts higher and not really practiced? Like, there's weird stuff that we stopped doing because it was considered redundant that used to be on the basic syllabus. And like a 2-finger eye gouge is pretty much useless. We did 5-finger eye gouges, and a tiger strike is useless. And we did a web strike where you use the inside of this bone right here to hit and crush the larynx. We did that one as a basic, and we did you know, your boxing punches are all basics and stuff like that. But they under Advincula's camp and under Mark Myers' camp, they condensed the basics to slightly less for both punching and kicking, because some of them are redundant and some of them, like, literally nobody can safely do in a street self defense situation and get away with it, other than like 1 in 100 million people or something like that. I mean, uh, in all of the time that mixed martial arts has been around, I think I have heard of one person getting a knockout with a crescent kick, and that must have been some kind of fluke, or else the other guy ducked into it or something, because nobody gets their crescent kick up like Philip Ree in real life with knockout power. Matter of fact, for every 1 degree you go above horizontal, you lose about 1% off of your kicking force. All right. So that's why yes, we know what a crescent kick is, but it's not considered a basic kick because nobody can do it. All right. On movies, they shoot that over and over again until they get one good looking kick, and the other guy is standing there letting him hit it with it. And that makes it look like that's a practical kick in movies, and it's not. It's about like a question mark kick. You're only going to land a question mark kick about 1 out of 1 million attempts. All right. Um, and it's not going to have full power anyway because it's a double kick, and double kicks never have full power. There's no human way to get full power into the second kick of a question mark kick. You're going to hit somebody in the head with about 1/4 the force that a regular roundhouse would have hit them with, and even a regular roundhouse hits them in the head with about a half as much force as the roundhouse would hit them in the liver or kidney. So that's why high kicks are discouraged for self defense. We used to do them anyway for flexibility and exercise purposes, but for self defense and practical fighting, they're pretty well useless. UFC highlights notwithstanding, I mean, yes, somebody can do it and actually knock somebody out if they step into it and drop their guard, which does happen in UFC. But in terms of beating somebody who does not drop their guard, you're not going to do it. All right. So, and then, like, of course, in Isshinryu karate, we said there are no dedicated blocks, even though you actually learn 8 basic blocks in basics class. Um, but there are no dedicated blocks. Every strike can be a block, and every block can be a strike. And certainly, by the time you're a brown or black belt student, you are supposed to know that. And also, let me correct something. A black belt is an expert. If you're really taught what you're supposed to be taught, a black belt is supposed to be an expert, not, well, he just learned his basics. What the hell? It took you 10 belt ranks to learn your basics? It's only supposed to take 1 belt rank to learn your basics. All right. Um, matter of fact, a 3rd-degree brown belt, which is a first Q, which is actually the last promotion I got because I tested for black belt for months and months and kept failing it. Um, a first Q or 3rd-degree brown belt is supposed to be an assistant instructor in class, which I was. All right. A black belt, a 1st-degree black belt, is supposed to be an expert and supposed to know all 8 official unarmed katas in Isshinryu and the first 3 armed katas in Isshinryu, plus any additional katas that the instructor or immediate branch teaches in addition to the full syllabus. And if you're learning in tandem with Japanese jiu-jitsu, a black belt, by the time you test for black belt under that sensei, you're going to know around 200 total submission techniques. All right, whether or not you can name them all, you will have seen all sorts of things, adaptations. The disarmer, that's one that I missed earlier. The disarmer. Um, uh, you will have seen all sorts of adaptations of submissions. All right, so you know, I guess I named about 30 in total that I actually named. I used to be able to name more like 50. I guess I need to practice more. Anyway, You're supposed to, by the time you're a black belt, you're supposed to be an expert at all of that. You're not supposed to be still working on basics. So I don't know who tells these people on Quora and other places these myths that a black belt is just somebody who's learned all their basics. All right. That's in addition to the bunkai of kata. All right, when you actually learn kata for real, you're taught both the kata and the bunkai in tandem. So by the time you actually get promoted from dark green belt to purple belt, you're supposed to know at least one bunkai interpretation of every sequence in Naihanchi kata and have Naihanchi kata memorized so you can do it without even really thinking about it. All right. In addition to everything else that you're supposed to learn at dark green belt. So the bunkai contains some submissions that we don't even have a name for, and sometimes we've got two or three interpretations of each sequence in the bunkai, and we're supposed to know all that by the time you reach the next belt rank. That's what you're getting promoted based on. You're not getting promoted based on kata memorization. You get promoted based on kata bunkai and application. You have to prove that you can do it to somebody in a full contact sparring match against a similar ranked opponent. And the other requirement for black belt in Isshinryu in my sensei's dojo was I had to be able to beat two second degree brown belts attacking me simultaneously. All right. And I could do that because I was by far the best fighter in his dojo other than himself and his wife.